Remember Maplin? For decades, it was the ultimate playground for anyone who loved electronics. Whether you were a seasoned engineer, a weekend hobbyist, or just someone looking for that one specific cable you couldn't find anywhere else, Maplin was the place to go. Walking into one of their stores was like stepping into a treasure trove of gadgets, components, and endless possibilities. But then, almost overnight, it vanished from our high streets. What happened? How did a retail giant that seemed so essential to British life just disappear? Today, we're unwrapping the story of Maplin's collapse and uncovering how the digital age, led by giants like Amazon, brought this beloved British institution to its knees. The story begins in 1972, not in a flashy high street store, but in a humble bedroom in Rayleigh, Essex. Roger and Sandra Allen, along with their friend Doug Simmons, started a small mail-order business from home. Their idea was simple but brilliant: sell electronic components to hobbyists. In the 70s, building your own radios, amplifiers, and gadgets was a popular pastime, and finding the right parts wasn't always easy. Maplin filled that gap perfectly. Their first catalogue, just a small black and white leaflet, quickly grew into a thick, glossy Bible for tech enthusiasts across the country. It was affectionately known as the Maplin catalogue, and for many, flicking through its pages was as exciting as getting the latest comic book. The business was a hit, and by 1976, they opened their first ever store in Westcliff-on-Sea. This was just the beginning. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Maplin boomed. They expanded from a mail-order business into a full-blown high-street retailer, opening stores all over the UK, and even in Ireland. It became the go-to destination for everything electronic. Need a specific resistor for your synth project? Maplin had it. Looking for a weird and wonderful adapter to connect your new VCR to your old TV? Maplin had it. They even sold their own branded kits, from simple circuits for beginners to complex synthesizers for musicians. The staff were a huge part of the appeal. They weren't just retail workers. They were genuine enthusiasts who knew their stuff. You could walk in with a vague problem, describe what you were trying to do, and they'd patiently help you find exactly what you needed. This expert advice and vast inventory built an incredibly loyal customer base. At its peak, Maplin had over 200 stores nationwide. It was a British success story, a cornerstone of the high street that seemed invincible. But as the new millennium dawned, the ground began to shift beneath Maplin's feet. The world of technology was changing, and consumer habits were changing with it. The DIY tech culture that had been Maplin's bread and butter started to fade. People were no longer building their own computers or radios from scratch. Instead, they were buying sleek, ready-made gadgets straight off the shelf. Think about it. Why spend a weekend soldering together a circuit board when you could buy a fully assembled, more powerful device for a similar price? The rise of plug-and-play technology, from smartphones to smart home devices, meant that fewer people needed the individual components that filled Maplin's shelves. The core customer base of hobbyists and tinkerers was shrinking. While they still had a loyal following, the mass market was moving on. The biggest threat, however, was looming online. The late 90s and early 2000s saw the explosive growth of e-commerce, and one company was leading the charge: Amazon. Suddenly, consumers had a world of products at their fingertips, available 24/7, and often at much lower prices. Why drive to a Maplin store, hope they had what you needed in stock, and pay a premium for it, when you could find the exact same item on Amazon, probably cheaper, and have it delivered to your door the next day? This shift towards online shopping was a massive challenge for all traditional retailers, but it hit Maplin particularly hard. Their business model was built on physical stores and specialized inventory, but the internet offered unparalleled convenience and price competitiveness. Amazon and other online electronics retailers could operate with lower overheads, no expensive high street rents, and could offer a virtually limitless catalog of products. Maplin was suddenly in a fight for survival, and it was a fight it was ill-equipped to win. Maplin's own business model had some serious flaws that made it vulnerable. Firstly, their pricing. Compared to online retailers, Maplin was expensive. Their reliance on physical stores with high rents, business rates, and staffing costs meant they simply couldn't compete on price with lean, online-only operations. A cable that might cost you £10 in Maplin could often be found for a couple of quid online. For the average customer, the choice was obvious. Secondly, their own online presence was clunky and outdated. While competitors were perfecting the user-friendly, one-click purchase experience, Maplin's website felt like an afterthought. It was difficult to navigate and couldn't offer the seamless service that customers were coming to expect from e-commerce giants. They were a technology company that had failed to keep up with technology. This heavy reliance on brick-and-mortar stores became an anchor dragging them down as footfall on the high street steadily declined. People were browsing in stores, but buying online, a phenomenon known as showrooming, and Maplin was a prime victim. To make matters worse, Maplin's ownership history was a turbulent journey through the world of private equity. Starting in the early 2000s, the company was sold and resold between different investment firms. While these firms often promised revitalization, their primary focus was often on short-term profit rather than long-term, sustainable growth. They loaded the company with debt to finance these acquisitions, which put immense financial pressure on the business. Instead of investing heavily in overhauling their e-commerce platform or fundamentally rethinking their business model for the digital age, the focus was often on cosmetic changes, store revamps, and rebranding exercises that looked good on paper, but didn't address the core problems. This cycle of debt and short-term thinking left Maplin financially weak and unable to make the bold, strategic moves it needed to survive. It was like trying to patch a sinking ship with sticky tape while ignoring the giant hole in the hull. The company was trapped in a downward spiral, and time was running out. The final blow came as a perfect storm of challenges that were crushing the entire British high street. Sky-high rents for their 200-plus stores and crippling business rates squeezed their already thin profit margins to breaking point. The post-Brexit economic uncertainty and a squeeze on consumer spending meant that people had less disposable income for gadgets and hobbies. Maplin was bleeding cash, and its owners were desperately trying to find a beer to rescue the company. But it was too late. No one was willing to take on the struggling retailer and its mountain of debt. In February 2018, the inevitable happened. Maplin entered administration. Despite last-ditch efforts to save it, a beer could not be found. One by one, the lights went out in every Maplin store across the country. By the summer of 2018, all 217 stores were closed for good. It was a sad and abrupt end for a brand that had been a fixture of British retail for over 40 years. The collapse resulted in the loss of over 2,300 jobs and left a noticeable gap on high streets up and down the country. In the aftermath, the Maplin brand didn't disappear completely. Like many fallen retail giants, its name and intellectual property were bought and revived as an online-only business. Today, you can still visit Maplin Co. UK and buy electronics. However, it's a shadow of its former self. It's just another face in the crowded online marketplace, lacking the physical presence, the expert staff, and the unique community feel that once made Maplin so special. The real Maplin, the one we all knew and loved, became another casualty of the so-called retail apocalypse, joining a long list of iconic chains like Woolworths and Toys R Us that failed to adapt to a changing world. So, what can we learn from the fall of Maplin? The most obvious lesson is a harsh one: adapt or die. In the age of e-commerce, no retailer is too big or too beloved to fail. Nostalgia and brand loyalty are powerful, but for most consumers, they can't outweigh the convenience and competitive pricing offered by online giants. Maplin's story is a stark reminder that retail chains can't rely on their history. They must constantly innovate, embrace new technology, and be willing to completely transform their business models to meet the evolving expectations of their customers. Perhaps if Maplin had invested in a world-class online platform sooner, or found a way to integrate its physical stores with a slick digital experience, its story might have had a different ending. But it didn't, and now it serves as a cautionary tale for every business operating in the 21st century. It's a sad end to a great British brand. Do you have any fond memories of shopping at Maplin? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to read them. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more stories like this. See you next time.